Hey guys, this is your host of Lit Literature, JP, aka The Demon. This is just a quick forward to this episode. We really apologize. Thankfully, it is still practice episodes, but we did have some audio issues during the recording of this. Actually, our mic had issues, and we ended up having to record our group audio from the computer mic. Not such good quality, but hopefully it's not that big of a deal. Again, this is episode 7. I believe through the end of The Way of Kings, book 1 of the Stormlight Archive. Anyway, it is still a practice episode, so if you want to skip ahead to the more mature episodes on book 2 and 3, go ahead. If not, please enjoy. Again, this is Lit Literature, your host, JP, aka The Demon, and cheers. Hello, everybody. This is Lit Literature with the Shoutouts. We're back again to talk the end of Book 1, the Stormlight Archive, The Way of Kings. And we're pretty pumped to do this. It's been a few weeks now. We got everyone caught up. We are ready to start Book 2. And real quick, we'll go around and do some introductions. Again, it's your host, The Demon, JP. Straight from LA, we have...
Brett Williams.
We got the Brett Williams, the director. And then the captain has left us on a solo mission to the Shattered Plains. Go ahead, Captain.
Captain reporting for duty. I am now on the Shattered Plains, a fresh member of Bridge 4. And I'm coming to you live from Phoenix, Arizona, which is basically the Shattered Plains. Whoop, whoop.
Go ahead, Josh.
And I got Josh Armstrong with Cherry.
You got Ben the Hitman here. Manny the Dream.
Okay.
Who was abandoned by the other Dark Eyes.
Oh, Manny is now sitting at a table full of light eyes.
He's lucky to be with us.
Yeah. We're going to get a children's table and put him there soon.
Oh, no. What have I done?
All right. So we got a ton to talk about. So just to refresh our memories, I believe we left off at the end of part 2, which was Dalinar. Did we do? No, I think we're doing part 3 and 4 now, aren't we?
No, 4 and 5.
Oh, we're doing 4 and 5. My bad. So at the end of part 3, who's got a good memory? What was our last?
So the lead-in chapters, we had 3 of them this time around. The first one being 2 completely new characters. Baxel, I believe, was one of them. And Av was another one. And they were accompanying somebody just known as the Mistress, who was breaking into rich places and defacing works of art.
Yeah, she wouldn't even steal them, right?
Yeah, she just break them.
Yeah.
I wonder. And we actually get a little bit of information from the kid in that story, because he's wondering to himself why she's not stealing them and just destroying them. And he also wonders if he should go to seek the old magic, right?
Yep. And get his boon. Along with his curse.
And I don't know if there's any relevance, but the Mistress was destroying works of art that were specifically of this deity called the Lady of Dreams.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to have any major impact, but that might be something to note.
Yeah, I agree. And that's actually, I think we could probably take a bet on that. I don't know. Do we know that, Josh? I don't think so. Yeah, we don't know that. We could. I'm willing. I'm going to say something right now that she's 100% associated with the Lady of Dreams. She might even be trying to hide her own identity.
Ooh.
She might be. Her own hired hands don't even know her name, so she seems to have kind of a pedestal position herself.
Yeah.
I agree. Yes. There's something strange about this lady. For sure.
All right. We'll hold that in our back pocket for now. Move on. But so we find out a little bit about the old magic and this, and then I think we go to what's our next intro?
The next one was two Ardents who were on a remote island. One of them was studying cooking, and the other one was studying Spren.
That's right. This was awesome.
Which seems to be a pretty
this
common
one was
thing,
interesting.
studying
That one
Spren.
was really cool.
And they're talking about, and it's really interesting because it's almost going a little bit towards like current science with like electrons and stuff, or photons, which are both a wave and a particle, and you don't know until you measure it. That's the whole like.
Yeah, it's basically
Schrödinger
like
cat.
it's the two slit experiment.
Yeah,
but with Spren.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. Schrödinger's cat, that it's not alive or dead until you measure it, until you look in the box. So that seems to be the same thing with the Spren, where once you try and measure it or define it, that's when it chooses what it's going to be, or it actually gets restrained by that.
Yeah, so cool.
We don't know what school these Ardents are for, but they seem to be a unique school where they're challenging their own.
Yeah, which is really interesting because they're definitely from a different ardent because they're married and are usually ardents.
No, I don't think they're not married. They talk about the possibility of like they could be more, but they don't want to because they've just stuck to this for so long. So that was part of one of the discussions that they have, where she's like, we've just been too long, and it's just too in our like everything we've done to go against or to like change any relationship status. But I definitely think that there's a maybe like undertones there where
They clearly were living together for so long, they just never maybe pulled the trigger, I guess.
Yeah.
But they got, so then after that...
But he smiled kissing her forehead. Like, they're pretty intimate.
I'd say they're almost like a married couple.
Yeah, they're definitely intimate.
But they definitely say, I don't know, kissing the forehead I don't think is intimate. I think that's like maybe a bit of an endearment than a romantic.
He also
gesture.
went love. He'll love.
He'll love. Yeah.
Give this a try.
Yeah, here, love, give this a try. They're definitely an old married couple.
Don't they also mention something about like different realms, like cognitive
They
and spiritual realm?
They do. Yeah, I took note that they mentioned a spiritual realm, and they were wondering if visitors to either that realm or to their own current realm need to eat, which was kind of a weird thing to mention.
And it's
because like one of them was even thinking about like changing specialties from cooking, right? He's like, I don't even know if they're going to need food in this other realm.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely new. That's kind of something that we haven't.
Well, and it's definitely going to be
story.
something I think we'll get a little more insight into that when we start talking about Shallan later. So they're obviously hinting at something or some other place that Shallan later learn about actually goes to.
So then our last intro, of course, is our Szeth intro. And apologies for the sneeze there. Occasionally I'll run away from the mic if I get a sneeze. Got some sniffles going.
Yeah, good old Szeth continues his path of destruction. Yeah, his super godlike killing streak, and he busts into the kingdom and slaughters a banquet that's being held for the king of Yakaved. And the Yakaved king tried to lay a trap for him because he knew Szeth was coming. But, Szeth's just too good. He just busts through the trap.
Was insane.
It doesn't matter if they know Szeth's coming.
Right.
He's just, whatever.
Right. And the king of Yakaved even had one of those manufactured shard plate shields that was supposed to have prevented Shardblades from being effective. And obviously Szeth proved that completely wrong. It probably required a little bit of skill on his part, but he easily disarmed the king and assassinated his target.
Yeah. Even that was an insane scene because you could see how good Szeth really is. He actually sent his sword away and used just his own martial prowess to beat the crap out of people.
Right.
And he seems to get like he also started to get almost maybe he's getting like a complex where he's angry or he's like he has so much guilt on himself that he's starting to get angry at the people he's killing because they're not killing him or they're unable to like effectively fight against him, and they're like, you're weak and you guys aren't like just killing me, just like end this.
Right.
I have to. And he's like kind of like, it seems like he's so cornered in his religion and his viewpoints that he's like he's manufacturing these reasons to just be able to keep moving on, that he's almost like, I have to justify this to myself somehow, otherwise I'm going to go insane.
Right.
Which kind of is almost going insane a little bit.
Right.
He was furious. Go ahead, Dress.
That's a very slippery slope for Szeth. Yeah, I agree completely. He was kind of trying to justify it by saying these people can't even defend themselves, so they're not worthy of living, which is a very dangerous mindset for someone like Szeth to have.
Yeah, because then just basically anybody you can kill deserved it.
Which is
And
everyone.
especially since he's so powerful, yeah. The thing too is it's like he's running into this problem where he has to keep doing all these murders, and it's like just tearing apart his soul. But it's like he's like, self-preservation. I need to justify this, otherwise I'm gonna go. Like otherwise, it's like he can't keep going. So he's creating these reasons. And this anger and kind of like, how do I get angry at these people? Almost searching for justification.
Well, he was like totally furious at the king.
Well, especially since the king was pretty douchey of him to be like, I'm going to bring all these people in just to make it, entice him to come and kill me.
But the king totally thought he was going to get him.
Yeah. Well, the king also set up the whole banquet as a ruse, but doing that put all those people's lives in jeopardy, which infuriated Szeth. So he's like, running around killing people, and then he's like, "This is your fault. This is the king's fault that I'm killing these people." Because
there's nothing else you can do though. Because if you're that king, this assassin's coming. I'm gonna set a freaking trap up to try to get him.
Yeah, but you don't set it up with bringing.
I'm not gonna sit there and be like, I don't want to get anybody killed, so I'm just gonna wait for my death. Like, there's no way.
I know the being ready to set up a trap is fine. Putting everyone's lives in danger for a trap. No, he could have just...
Remember, nobody knows he's got orders to just murder all these bystanders. They think that he's just...
Well, he's been murdering all the bystanders in every city.
Sometimes, but he...
What kind of a trap would you think would be more efficient then?
Yeah, I don't know.
He could have... I mean, it could have been the same thing. He could have just been at a dinner table with just him and some guards. Could have been just as effective as a trap.
Gotta make it a party, right?
Just a normal dinner with guards in the room.
I mean, I think he had to set up something believable.
Well, otherwise, Szeth may not even have come at the time, right? Because he noticed that he needs a banquet. He's got to kind of lure Szeth. He's like, oh, Szeth is killing these guys in big public ways. What's a good way to lure Szeth?
We just don't have any public events then.
Big public event. But he
2,000 years later, it's like part of their religion. They just can't have public events.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the man in white might come, and then all of a sudden all these children's stories, oh, they're just saying that so we don't, misbehave. The man in white will come.
Yeah. We'll just...
Apparently everyone's going to talk like that.
Yeah, he's just saying that. No, just their kids. Little
just the
fucking
kids
brats.
talk like that. We'll go ahead and save this a little bit because we get some more Szeth later, obviously. But so that kind of bridges our gap into part 4 and 5. And then part 4, we get a ton of Shallan again. So I don't know if you guys want to talk through her... Wait. Yes. You want to... I don't know. It's up to you guys. You want to talk through Shallan's story first?
Yeah.
It's good to start
Let's go through Shallan.
So she wakes up and she's now in the hospital and
wait,
just trying to...
5?
Yeah, I think it's part 5. Yeah. Where do we get with Shallan?
I don't think you have much of her in part 4, actually.
Oh, is she out of part 4?
She's asleep right now.
Dalinar,
she's in the hospital, and I think part 4 focuses more so on Kaladin and
You're right.
And,
4 is Dalinar.
We can
start there.
The next chapter in the book is another storm vision with Dalinar, and it seems like a very important one. Dalinar goes through the storm vision and finds himself in the body of a soldier at a place called Feverstone Keep. Do you guys remember this section?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he was a part of the Night Watch. Or,
these humans were manning the castle, and this seems to be a long time in the distant past, because a whole army of Radiants pull back from the front line, and every single one of them seems to be shard bearers. And they get up to the castle where all the humans are stationed, and it's a really nail-biting scene, because Dalinar thinks these shard bearers are just gonna annihilate this castle of regular humans. They're not going to be able to stand a chance against these guys. But all of the Radiants, they just throw down their Shardblades and they quit. They're like, we're done. We're not doing this war anymore. Peace.
Yeah.
They just leave.
Yeah, and then he describes something like he hears this terrible sound, like this screeching death, and then this is where we get to find out where all of the modern day
Plates
royal
and arms.
noble families get their plates and shit. They're just fought each other over
They just all ran out and grabbed a bunch of
Shardblades up for grabs.
And then they killed whoever they could, thinking that they could.
Yeah.
So crazy.
So I gotta bring this up in conversation. Let's say that happened and we were all guarding that castle.
What would we do?
What would we do? I would say
I'd kill all of you. I'm taking all the Shardblades.
I definitely wouldn't kill anyone. I would try not to, but I would definitely run out there and try to get a freaking
there's
Shardblade.
like what, 5 or 6 of us? There's enough Shardblades for us. Let's band together and every one of us gets a Shardblade. We all have each other's backs.
Yeah.
But you know it would happen. Like I'd be sitting there, and I'd be like terrified that the Knights Radiant, our guardian force, just abandoned us. But then I would be like, I'll run out there and grab one too.
But you gotta think too, is they just all pull back. Obviously, from the front lines, we don't know what they're fighting. Could they be these what are they called? Voidbringers. But we don't know what they're out there fighting, or could they be the same thing that some of Dalinar's earlier visions they were fighting, the smoky, like balloon creatures.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
So now they're all gone, and these people are like, all right, so if they're not fighting in the front line, what's going to come after them? So I think that definitely the smart decision is to get out there and get one of those Shardblades.
That's a good point.
Well, it's kind of a dick move on the what were they, Radiance or whatever the Shard Bearers were. It's kind of a dick move just to like, I mean, imagine if like America just like went overseas and like dropped all of our nukes in the middle of a field and was like, we're done.
What? Not just the nukes. Yeah. Brett, that's a good way to put it. It's not even just the nukes. They dropped all the nukes in this field, and then also the
tanks, the guns,
the machinery to use them. They literally just said, here's the nukes, and then here's the button to press.
Here's all the detonators.
I don't know if I agree that it's a douche move, though. Because I feel like, based on the previous visions that we've had with Radiance in them, they seem like pretty upstanding people. But something had to have happened that they were like, we're not doing this anymore.
Now, this is that
So
event.
what is it that happened?
Exactly. And this is that event that we've heard about in the book, right? The entire time they talk about this event where the Knights Radiant betrayed
humanity.
It's humanity. And this was it. This was that. We saw
It's
it
called
live.
the Day of Recreance.
I don't know if I missed something, but up to this point, I always assumed that the moment that the Knights Radiant betrayed them was when, or maybe this is the same moment, I don't know, but I always assumed it was at the beginning with the 10.
No, those are the heralds.
That was the heralds. That's way before the Radiance.
Oh, those are heralds. Okay, so those are different. All right, never mind then.
Go ahead.
That's what I always, because I got those mixed up, and I was always assuming that it was that point that they were discussing.
No, there's the heralds that betray. Well, actually, nobody thinks the heralds.
Yeah, everyone thinks the heralds won.
Yeah, they told the heralds said we won.
That's right.
Away. Now, Dross, you were gonna jump in.
Oh, I was just gonna say that this event in the story is known as the Day of Recreance. And once Dalinar finishes this vision, it leads to one of my favorite alliances in the book, because Dalinar finally decides, like, hey, maybe I should get Navani on my side now. And Navani is there to kind of write down everything he says during the vision. And her and Renarin kind of crack the code in a ways, and they discover that the gibberish, quote unquote, that Dalinar is talking.
I think that's not till the next stream.
Yeah, actually, it might not be till the next stream, but this is kind of.
But we could go into it. Yeah, we're gonna talk through Dalinar now. We already started that boat. Let's go for it.
So in his next vision, he actually ends up going back to what seems like one of these really big fights with the Voidbringers, and it looks like
hang on real quick.
Let's
Let's let Ross finish his thought real quick.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about his next vision, because both of these visions are kind of wrapped up into one. But Navani is deciding to help him and kind of starts breaking down the language that he's speaking, and finds out that it's actually an ancient language, word for word, what he's speaking. So that gives that kind of backs up Renarin's idea that there's some truth to these visions, that they're not just nonsense. Like, he's actually speaking an ancient language, so there's got to be some reality behind these visions.
And you bring a good point, and I'm going to jump back into Cherry here, because he was bridging that.
Yeah, let's bridge it.
So I'll let him talk about the next vision. But before I do that, I just want to add in, it's pretty cool because Adolin is really furious in these chapters because he finds out his dad is going to abdicate, and then he's like furious at himself for convincing himself to Dalinar, because in Adolin's mind he even says, even if he is crazy, he's still exactly what
we need.
He's still backing him. So then they're all in a room, and that leads us to what Cherry was going at, so I'll let him describe that.
Yeah, so he goes back in one of the next vision. He's actually he seems to be an elderly aide to an old man that seems like they're having this, like they're on the cusp of this war that it seems they maybe just barely won or just barely managed to skate by. And he realizes he's in his home of, I forget where they live.
Kholinar?
Right.
Kholinar?
Or
yeah.
worse.
Yeah, I think it was Kholinar.
They're in like the capital city, and he's like, I recognize all these mountains, but everything's in ruins, and there's just like destruction all over the place. And the guy that he's talking to, he starts to slowly realize this is the person that he's idolized, the king who wrote the books that he's been wrote the way. The Way of Kings is what it's called. So he wrote the book, and that Dalinar is following the codes.
It's funny that even in that is Dalinar thinking about what he already knows. Is like, well, you should write it down. And the king himself is like, now is not the time to be writing. We need to fight. Like he had a different attitude. And then Dalinar from that dream realizes that it was later in that king's life that he went back and wrote that stuff down.
Yeah, and he comes to a bit of an epiphany right after that, where he's kind of sitting there and he's like, these aren't, like back then, the whole codes and everything that they did it was a perfect time for that to kind of move into that, because everyone was already united by this huge catastrophe.
But before united.
And now he's realizing, like, I can't force, or I can't, like, kind of get these people to see like how good the codes are. These are like petulant children right now.
Yeah, that was a great line when he he compares the high princes to the children, and he's like, these are children. That was awesome.
Yeah, he's like, I don't have the time to let them grow into seeing how the codes are good for them. I need to, like children, I need to teach them. I need to force them to follow the codes. And so he then makes some pretty amazing moves with Elokar, the king. He realizes a few things, goes to visit his son.
I feel like this is the third dream, not the second.
I think this is the third, too. See, we're getting these dreams all over the place.
Yeah.
The second one he does...
He didn't get that revelation until the third dream.
Yeah, that's right. He gets the second dream.
The second dream is where he gets... he's speaking a language, and Navani's like, you just translated this word that we all use.
The second dream is basically where he becomes the Rosetta Stone, right?
Yeah, the second one is the one where they realize, hey, I'm not going crazy. What are these dreams telling me? Adolin is like, oh, wow, my father's not crazy.
And now, this entire time, I think they also... He then goes to the party. I totally can't even remember my...
I have the notes for this section. Kind of during this time when Dalinar's having all these visions... he first goes to a feast, and he kind of gets a warning from Wit, who is just letting him know, like, something's about to go down at this feast. I'm on my way out, so peace. We might not ever see each other again. See ya. Like, good luck. Which, yeah.
It's such a tease. Hey, something's gonna go down. Bye.
He doesn't say what it is. As we know at this point in the story, Sadeas is the High Prince of Information. So he's been investigating that the cut saddle, and Sadeas is going to make a proclamation. And Dalinar is kind of getting sick of waiting around to hear this proclamation, so he goes up to him and he's like, "Come on, just make it already." And
true Dalinar, just forces it out.
And man, I was on the edge of my seat because, like, it just felt like,
dude, this scene was set up so well. It was set up through like this entire section so well. I was waiting for this scene, and I totally thought that Sadeas was going to stab Dalinar in the back right there.
He had every reason to. Like, he could have gotten away with it for sure. But rather than doing that, he vindicates Dalinar, and he says, no, the settle was cut before it got to your camp, so someone is probably trying to frame Dalinar in this crime. Which I thought was like amazing. I'm like, oh my god, like finally this is crazy. And then later, in the next chapter with Dalinar, Adolin is having a duel to kind of continue his following. And Adolin beats, another Shardbearer. It was two Shardbearers dueling each other. And Dalinar and Sadeas are kind of watching, and they're getting buddy-buddy in the stands with each other. They're almost like besties because Dalinar's trying to push the codes onto Sadeas. He's like, hey, you should learn these codes. And Sadeas is really kind of playfully resistant to it. But then at the very end of the chapter, he's like, yeah, maybe I'll check those out. And I'm like, oh, yes, they're finally like getting along.
Yep.
So this entire thing sets up how badass this
yes.
is, though.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Tell me, you guys.
We're getting close to the crossover, right?
Oh yeah. So we're not going to talk about the end yet. We're going to get there, I know. But you guys got to admit, was anyone able to actually put the book down in like the last? Any of those last chapters?
No, but the last 200 pages, I was like, I can't put this down.
It was insane. There was nothing. You're like, no, staying up late tonight.
It's like one revelation after another.
Yeah,
it's so crazy. So
Sadeas Dalinar basically convinces Sadeas to help him on his strategic cooperative bridge runs, and the agreement is that Sadeas goes fast with his bridge crews. Dalinar holds the army, and then Dalinar reinforces him. So Sadeas can actually move even faster, too, because he only needs to bring a fraction of his army. And they do this successfully for quite a bit.
A few bridge runs.
At least 6, I believe.
And during this time period, Kaladin and his team, who are training, and, well, basically, we got to get into Kaladin at some point, but they're going through their own realization that they're bait, and that they need to find a way out. But during these bridge runs, Kaladin is actually watching the battle strategy, right? So he's kind of learning a little bit about Dalinar, and he realizes his team has a lot of respect for Dalinar's army. They seem to view, even though Kaladin doesn't, because he's jaded against all light eyes whatsoever.
Power to the dark eyes.
Yeah. But interestingly, he's watching this, and he notices that Dalinar and Adolin are always leading the push. They don't let their men attack.
They jump the chasms beforehand and fight.
Exactly. So I almost think we got 27 minutes. We should probably take a quick break, save our audio files, because we have some new technology involved in our file. So in then 2 minutes, we should stop here with Dalinar. Actually, no, we should go till we're done talking Dalinar, but there's a point where Kaladin's storyline and Dalinar's kind of meet, right? So
yeah, that's basically right about now, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we hit stop on the record, save our audio, and start up fresh with Kaladin.
Oh, sounds good.
Sound good? We'll have a break, folks. This is where you get your forced advertisement that we don't have yet. Cheers, and we are cut.
Brought to you by Coco, in theaters now.
So, all right, folks, we're back. We're back for part 2 of episode 7. Sorry for the delay there and all the advertisements we didn't force you to listen to.
Coco, in theaters now.
Yeah, Coco in theaters now. Here we go. Coco, give us some money. All right, here's what we got. We just finished talking about Dalinar up to his alliance with Sadeas, and Sadeas vindicating Dalinar and being this boss buddy. And then we got Kaladin. Kaladin realizes at the end of last part that they were basically bait. And what does he do? He starts to turn into the Wretch. And then he stops turning into the Wretch and decides, well, screw it. If we're supposed to die, then I guess I better break the shit out.
Escape.
Yeah, and they basically decide that they're going to escape, right?
Yeah. They decide they're going to have to escape. Now, there's
that's what you meant by break the shit out. Okay.
That is correct.
How it goes down specifically is Kaladin comes up with a money plot to gain money because they're starting to find some nicely high-priced chips in the corpses in the caverns when they go through the caverns. And they find a bow and they give it to Rock, who's able to expertly use the bow and arrow, which he says
knows how to use this
weapon. Right.
He knows how to use this thing.
He uses this thing to shoot a pouch of money onto a bridge where they can collect it later. But later on, their new lady who replaced Gaz, what's her name again?
What was her name?
I forget her name. I'll look it up. But keep going.
The Palanquin woman?
Yeah. She basically says they're going to be doing bridge runs every day now, which obviously is not going to work for Bridge 4. They would die before they got the chance to escape. So Kaladin starts putting his plans into overdrive and comes up with a new strategy for escaping.
She doesn't only just make them go on bridge runs all the time. She also gives them 100% chasm duty, right?
Well,
she gives
they've
them,
had that.
they've had that already,
She's
right?
not taking it away.
And that's right. And then now she's like, you're also going to run every bridge because of how
Every bridge, yeah.
efficient you are at bridge running. So Kaladin basically is like, oh man, we're screwed.
So pretty much they're twice every bridge run they have the possibility of dying, and then they have the possibility of dying down in the chasms by those flash floods.
And also, they don't have a lot of time to sleep because they have to do chasm duty at nighttime a lot of times, and then they wake up in the morning if there's a bridge run.
Which there is.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think
Kaladin...
Go ahead, Dross.
He starts getting kind of demoralized, and he leaves the camp for a short time to go on a walk like his good old dad used to do, Lyran. And Kaladin ends up running into a campside musician who we quickly find out as it's Wit, and he introduces himself as Hoyd. And he tells Kaladin this amazing story called Darethil and the Wander Sail. If you haven't read the book by now, I would definitely recommend checking out this section in particular, because the short story that Wit tells to Kaladin is really, really good. And it's just a small crumb of the world-building skill that we see from Sanderson here.
It's so amazing. So awesome. That scene was amazing. The other thing is, right before that, Kaladin is starting to have to realize that he's pretty special, which is part of that, right? That entire walk as well, right?
Yeah, he walked because he finally found out that he has that power with the Stormlight.
Yeah.
And he thinks it's a curse.
Yeah, he thinks it's a curse. I gotta tell you guys something right off the bat, though. I was getting a little frustrated at Kaladin at that point, but he needed that story from Hoyd to kind of come to terms with the fact that he's got to take some ownership for not only what he's caused negatively, but what he's actually been able to do positively.
Agreed. Yeah.
So that was an awesome scene. So so Kaladin basically owns the fact that he's a boss at this point. And decides that, well, he's going to learn how to use this shit.
Well, and we also learned that Wit's ex-apprentice is one of the people on Bridge 4. So it's,
Zigzal.
Oh, yeah.
Zigzal. Yeah, who we kind of assumed had some knowledge because he kept talking about, like, the kind of some of the lore and the Radiance, and he talked about different places that he visited, so he's a well-traveled person. So we're kind of learning a little bit about, like,
Well, Zigzal also is like, oh, if you let my master know, he might come try to save me.
Yeah.
Now we know who his master really is.
But I was wondering, is this the guy who was in that one interlude who got arrested? Do you remember?
You mean the guy with the tattoos?
Zigzal?
No.
Because the guy with the tattoos got arrested, but I don't remember
he had a
another.
master, I'm pretty sure.
No, that guy is definitely not Zigzal, though.
That guy's like one of the heralds.
He might be. We don't know. We took a bet on that. But we took a bet. But yeah, that guy got arrested, but I think he's just stuck in jail.
Yeah.
That would be crazy. I don't think that's the case, though.
No.
But Josh and I don't know, so we're all speculating. Zigzal, I think, is just a straight up dude that Wit befriended and took under his apprenticeship.
What if Wit is a herald?
I will say that Hoyd.
Well, we do find out more about Wit later that makes him seem like he's quite the boss.
I will say
in some
that
way.
Hoyd in Sanderson's kind of book universe makes appearances in books. Whether he's a herald or not, that's something that could be up for grabs. I don't think we know that for sure, but I do know that Hoyd, the name Hoyd that he uses there, is kind of famous in Sanderson's other worlds. So
Interesting.
yeah, so I don't know a ton about Sanderson, all his other books, because I've actually read Mistborn, and I think he does make an appearance in that book series in some form or fashion. Josh might be able to corroborate that, but I know I've read some of Sanderson's, but not enough. So some of you big time Sanderson listeners out there can probably comment and correct us. But we're gonna focus. We'll keep focused on this. So Kaladin has this badass kind of meeting, and then acknowledgement of his badassery. Finally decides to own it.
And you could see that he's kind of moving a bit towards. They're edging him towards this idea that maybe it's not necessarily what's happened right now, or like it's not the end. Isn't maybe the destination's not the ultimate goal. It's maybe the traveling between the journey, and that actually some of that goes back towards Dalinar when he stopped the Way of Kings, and that story where the king spent 6 months walking across the kingdom instead of taking a horse ride palanquin for like a week or whatever. And when he arrives there, like, you could have just gotten ferried here. Like, why did you do it on your own 2 feet? Why did you walk? And he's like, it's not like the journey is part of getting here.
They're setting him up, but we gotta talk about this real quick. So Kaladin's kind of in his own way finding the Way of Kings codes without actually reading the book, right? But then he
might already know that.
Well, he may. So we get this thing where Syl is getting really intelligent and also asking him, like, kind of coming to terms with, hey, I take something from you, but in return I give you something.
Yeah.
So they have this kind of symbiotic power relationship. We don't really know yet what she's taking from Kaladin, but we know that she's quote unquote a certain type of spren by the end of the book. I think they called her
Courage spren.
Yeah.
Honor spren.
Honor spren. That's it. That's spren.
Honor spren.
Honor spren.
So
right.
Clearly she's attracted to what Kaladin is innately. Which
Honorable.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing we got to talk about, though, is Kaladin comes up with this crazy idea. Didn't
they also call her a binding spren at one point, too?
They did. So, interesting. Maybe honor binds you.
Did they actually call her a binding spren, or did she just say, I can bind things?
I think that there was one point where they called her a binding
you're right,
spren,
Brett.
but it was very soft. And honor, I think in a way, binds you in a lot of ways, which is kind of symbolic. But the thing that Kaladin comes up with, right, is so they get this parshman in their group. Shen. And Shen, and then Kaladin comes up with this crazy-ass idea, that he's kind of hiding from his team. But we find out that Shen freaks out whenever
the bodies
are touched.
The parshmen are touched.
Yeah. And this gives Kaladin some crazy idea.
The Parshendi will freak out as well.
Yeah. So they ignore their bodies. They apparently get super freaked out whenever bodies are touched, moved,
Or moved.
whatever,
Or touched.
And that leads Kaladin to his brilliant idea
To take their armor.
Yeah, which
take their skin essentially.
It's their skin,
their carcasses off their skin and turn it into a bit of armor for them and turn it into a distraction.
So Dalinar's on that run, right? He uses it. He's like holding the shield, running out in front of the bridge, flipping around like a maniac.
You mean Kaladin, right?
Yeah, Kaladin. I'm sorry. Dalinar was watching.
I thought you were like, Dalinar was there.
Because Dalinar even gave him like a salute before they ran off, and then that was literally so profound that he basically Kaladin did it again, right? He did something. It was viewed positively by Sadeas, and then the new master, Paraquin lady, whatever her name is,
Matal, I think,
right. couldn't say or do shit about it,
and it worked so well
because it got him a promotion.
Yeah. Right.
So let's fucking talk this out.
Well, he also starts
this book.
Yeah, through this, he starts to kind of realize, like, all right, I have to keep the filled Stormlight coins in his purse or keep them with him at all times. And
trying to consciously
he's starting to realize there are things that's happened, like one when he's running, and all of a sudden he was noticing before that a lot of the arrows would be stuck all around him or close to his hands where he's holding the bridge. So at one point he's running with the shield, and a large volley comes, and he's able to just somehow pull all the arrows into the shield.
So here's what we really need to do. So we're like kind of refreshing our own memory here, but let's like just talk about this. Basically, we know that Kaladin is a baby version of Szeth.
Yes, a baby version.
Like this is what we got to hit our concepts right now, okay? Because we're all like struggling on this memory because we waited too long to do this fucking podcast.
Think it's
so let's just do it like this, man. So Kaladin,
us dark guys are okay, right, Andrew?
Right.
These dark guys were too slow. They finished the book at the right time. The rest of us were like, "Fuck! It's been 2 weeks." No, listen. Oh, Manny's looking at me so dark. No. What we really need is like. So this is crazy. Kaladin basically has exactly the same binding powers as Szeth. So let me bring up a few questions to you guys. So Kaladin, he's going through his bridge shit. He's going to save his boys. He's like, we're going to break out. Fuck this. We're fodder. We're basically bait. We're going to die at some point, or we break out and we die in the attempt to break out. I think that's totally logical. Totally logical. But what we have now is Kaladin understanding he's got this power. Now he also owns it, and he decides he's going to use it and learn how to do it. And then we find out through our own selves, because we get to read about Szeth. Kaladin doesn't know. Kaladin's basically baby Szeth. Mm-hmm. Now, we don't know if Szeth has an honor spren. He doesn't talk to his spren. He definitely has a blade. That's it. But he can do surge bindings just like Kaladin can. So, thoughts?
Is Szeth...
Well,
I think it's interesting, the idea that, what rules are the honor spren bound by, because in some ways it seems like what Szeth's doing, if he has a spren, is very not honorable, but you're also adhering to a strict code.
Could be
honorable, and if you have a code and you adhere to it even against your will, that seems very honorable, but if you're not doing an honorable thing, is it still honorable? So I'm very torn on if Szeth has a spren or not, or if this is more natural for him.
Even Syl starts to kind of question those when she's like coming into like realization. She's like, what you did was like wrong, or it was a lie, but was it was she's like, I don't like it, but I understand why you did it. So I think could this be something that maybe Szeth's got, where maybe he does have an honor spren that's like, I don't like the outcome of what we're doing, but I understand the honor that you're trying to follow.
So I have a theory, and I can actually still say this theory, even though I'm a bookhead of you bastards. I think that Szeth doesn't have an honor spren. And I think that there is only one way that he has binding abilities without an honor spren. Do you know? Have you heard me talk about this?
No, but I can.
And what is that?
Me like the other two without having to have something.
I think that Szeth's Shardblade is a Herald Shardblade and not a normal Shardblade. That's what I think.
I was thinking Syl is such an interesting part of the story because
I think that's a real Knights Radiant, though.
Who?
I think that the Heralds are not Knights Radiants. I think that they had something else going on. The Knights Radiants were formed to support the Heralds.
And they all did drop their blades, the 10 blades. So those are...
Well, those are the Heralds, not the Radiants.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
I think
it's a
that
Herald
Kaladin is what would be a modern day or a growing of this radiant. This clearly something a little different. But I think that Szeth has a fucking Herald sword. That's what I think. And I'm going to put him. I think it's one of the 10 original.
And
that could be totally fucking
powers
off. He might.
I don't know about that because then if like Shardblades, I think came from the 10 originally.
So well, I don't know. No, there were hundreds of them.
Hundreds of Shardblades.
There were hundreds of Shardblades. So that's not.
Oh wait, no. But that's after the Heralds, right?
Exactly.
But that's what I'm saying. Like all of those hundreds came from the original 10. I think the original. I don't think that the 10 actually still exists. I think they're scattered into pieces.
Yeah, no. I don't think they're. I think the 10. Pieces? I think the 10 Shardblades, the original Herald Shardblades, exist, passed around like normal Shardblades, but they're a little bit more special. That's what I think. And I think Szeth has a fucking Herald Shardblade, and it gives him the ability to bind, basically to win run. And I think that the Knights Radiant, this is crazy. I don't know if I'm right. This is my theory, though. I think the Knights Radiant, it's kind of like the Heralds were first, the Knights Radiant were second, and they're based off of these school abilities, which we kind of get a little sense, right? Because they say the school or the schools of Knights Radiant, or like
there were the different
groups,
and they each had their own codes, but they all followed one major code, and then they each had their own subcode.
Yeah, so they have different subcodes,
like the Ardents,
right? So I think that's my Brett bet. I'm putting a Brett bet on it. Oh. I say I'm going to have a shot and some push-ups that Szeth does not have an honor sprint, and then he has an original Radiance Shardblade, and that's what lets him surge bind.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I think he does have an honor sprint. I think it's going to be something that we find out probably at a later point where it's going to be... Maybe it's something
his own honor.
Well, maybe it could be something where
the argument, man.
He could also have actually broken the pact. Well, maybe not broken the pact, but he could have possibly been abandoned by his honor spren, but he's still left with maybe
you think if you're abandoned, abandoned Kaladin, he could still use the power?
Or it could be maybe even something worse than that. Maybe
that's kind of crazy.
Maybe he didn't abandon it, but he's like kind of condensed it into something, or he's forced it to something that it can't influence him, but he still gets to use the power. It could be something like that.
Good.
I think
I like this.
That might be the other option.
Well, there's also a possibility, I think, that the honor spren could be just as individualistic as people are, and what they consider honorable can be just as wide and varying as what, any being might think is. So maybe that's, if he has a spren, maybe she or he is just of the same mindset as Szeth, and it's like, well, it's honorable to follow your code or whatever binds you, even if you don't want to do it. So maybe they're just of the same mindset. But I'm actually kind of well, I don't know if
we are
writing down who's betting what, but I'm with Jeff. I think that he has a Herald sword.
All right, we got two.
Cool. But I'm not 100% sure that doesn't mean that means that he doesn't have a spren.
Well, so the Brett bets that he's getting his power from the Herald.
They're mutually exclusive.
Not from a spren. He said that he doesn't have a spren.
My Brett bet is that he doesn't have a spren. He's getting his binding power from the Herald sword. That's the Brett bet.
My question to that would be then, what
I think it's a Herald sword for sure.
That Herald swords give you then?
I think they're the original schools. The original Knights Radiant ability schools.
That's maybe the sword has, because
I think there's 10 of them. So I think there's probably 10 schools. And I think that the abilities that the Knights Radiant have, binding with Spren, correlate to one true Shardblade that gives you that ability, hands down. So that's what I think.
So you think that all Knights Radiants are binding with Spren?
I think that Kalak, our buddy, was a Windrunner, and he had the sword that Szeth has. That's what I think. I'm getting crazy, man. I'm making all kinds of outrageous stuff right now. But that's what I think.
I like it though.
All right,
I'm going
Brett
with that.
and Jeff
Yeah,
are
I'm
on
with
that
you.
one.
I'm against.
Dross, Captain?
I think that that theory definitely holds water. If you look at how the Radiants have worked historically, it seems like, maybe there are certain groups of Radiants who uniquely follow one school, which would, if your theory's right, would be the equivalent of one herald with their own specialty, like their own values. So let's say, for example, there's Spren who feed off of honor, like Syl. She tells Kaladin herself, I take something from you, I feed off of something from you. She might be getting energy from the honor that he is demonstrating, and in return grants him some of those abilities, which may have been how the Radiance worked. So to kind of go along with that same theory, I would say that Szeth probably, I would agree that he has one of the original Herald blades and doesn't need any sort of outside force to feed him anything else other than the Stormlight swords. And that, so Szeth does not have a Spren, and that Kaladin is, might be a Radiant in training. So I would probably agree with you and Brett, Jeff. The demon and the director.
3. All right, we got
2 for, 1 against.
director, demon, and captain on Herald Sword. Spren, we have Cherry, Ben the Hitman.
Yeah. Well, he does say that his sword is special in the earlier chapters because it's the only one that makes his eyes glow like white. But whether it's a Hero sword or not, I don't know. I'm going to say that it's not. I'm going to say he has a Spren, and rather like they just don't talk to each other anymore because like the Spren doesn't want to lose what he's become, so he just follows him around, even though
Szeth has lost his.
Or rather, they don't show it in the parts.
We only have little segments, right? So it could be.
But
Woo, this is an exciting one.
yeah,
I bet we're gonna find out in book 3.
I'm gonna say that's good.
All right. So we got Spren, Cherry, and Hitman. It's all on Eve the Dream.
Even it out or leave it lopsided.
I don't know if I agree with either of them.
Oh!
The only bit is that you disagree with theirs. You don't have to agree with our belief, but if you disagree with theirs, then you're
if you think that Szeth's power comes from a Spren, say it's a Spren. If you think it comes from the sword, say it's a sword. If you think it's something different, I'll write that down, and you could wager that.
You could be a Green Party vote, Manny.
I could be an individual, or what are they?
independent.
Manny
Also known as wasted.
No,
No, you're a dark
you're
eyes.
a robot, you dark eyes. Let's go. You're on the spot, man. We gotta get moving.
I don't think it's either of them.
What do you think it is? That's the power source.
What is it?
I don't know. I feel like
Just put him down as a
put him
no.
down as a no. I feel like I don't think that
We don't know
the sword is special. I don't feel like the sword is a.
You're no.
Herald.
So you're
Herald
Manny, not Herald, doesn't know.
But I don't believe that he necessarily needs a Spren to be able to do what he does.
Gotcha. Okay, we're good,
Like-
man. We got a good break.
Well, the first thing, the reason that
I also
think that
just
is
thought
because
of something right now
the two
that
girls can do alchemy.
I mean, I haven't had time to think about this, so it's probably full of holes. But what about the idea that swords are potentially.
That's what I was thinking.
Spren.
I was thinking that Syl is actually could materialize into
Is that a
shard blade.
And that's how they dematerialize and materialize and go away and
Is that
come
a
back
bet?
and that's maybe what Syl is giving Kaladin. And maybe in book 3 eventually
that's what I was
Kaladin's
thinking
just
too. I was
gonna
like,
summon
she's
Syl.
teaching him how to suck in the shard or the power of the light, but then in return, she takes some of that power herself, which is why she gets stronger and stronger. And then essentially, because she could materialize to an actual shard blade herself.
So, do we want to take a Brett bet on that? I will say that. Brett.
My answer is going to contradict the bet we just made, so I'm going to win one, lose one.
It won't, because we just stated the Herald swords are unique.
Oh.
So what I'm
we
saying,
think the Herald swords are unique. We have no clue they are.
So if you want to make a Brett bet, what would the Brett bet be? I heard a great one right there.
That Shardblades are Spren.
Josh and I cannot partake in this.
Whoa!
Oh!
Damn it!
Because in book 2 we
I'm
find
gonna
out
say
a
yes,
little bit
just
more
for
about
fun.
Shardblades.
Yeah.
And we have some more facts, but I love the idea that we are now going to take a bet on what Shardblades are, and that's really exciting to me.
I'm going to say that Shardblades are Spren. Just for fun.
I would like to believe so.
Me too. That's why I'm betting it. I think it might be wrong, but I like it.
So I got Brett and Manny.
Yeah, because I feel like
I'll take some drinks
they haven't
to
had
have a
a
little fun.
practical way of obtaining or how these shard blades came to be.
Yeah, they're just starting to mimic them now with half-baked technology, right?
So you know what I mean? So I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
they could be the creatures that have been existing alongside mankind, but they just forgot about it or don't remember. I don't know. But yeah, I'll say yeah. I agree. The potential
Manny?
for them to
Alright.
be Spren originally.
It also kind of makes me wonder, though, wouldn't Rock be able to, like, see everybody's Shardblade at all times, though?
Good point.
It's kind of interesting that you could summon a blade from another realm.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
kind of ties into the whole fact that Shallan and Yasna can go into this other realm where the creatures essentially that she was drawing, she even tells her are Spren from another dimension
They're
or stuff,
logic spread.
right? So the possibility of
Right,
them calling this forth could be that they're calling a Spren from another dimension.
They're not? What kind of spread were they? They say it.
They're lies or something to do with lies.
True spread? It's the opposite.
The opposite.
It's opposite.
Yeah.
I remember because it always
But they
says,
said that it was
tell
Spren,
me
right?
the truth.
Yeah, they want to know a truth.
Yeah.
Maybe they're truth spread.
Yeah, maybe that is.
It was something like that. True spread, logic spread.
Yeah.
Well, let's just keep this one in the back of our minds and not make it a Brett bet.
Oh.
Because I'm not too sure.
I got Brett
sure
and
on
Manny
it.
think that they are spread. I want to know what Ben and
Jeff's gonna record it anyway.
I don't think they are.
Ben thinks they are not.
I think it would seem wrong to turn them into Spren after they became alive and intelligent.
So why would they
So,
turn
basically.
into an object?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
I don't think that they're that object always. I think that they form a partnership and can kind of like.
But
Dalinar and
Yeah, how does Dalinar and
Yeah.
all them? They've never said anything about talking.
You guys are so awesome. I gotta say it. This
might be-
conversation
but
is so
it's-
deep, and it's really interesting to me only because I have some future knowledge.
See, this is what I was thinking with
I
it,
love
is
that
that maybe
comment, Ben.
this is how the blades are first created. So they have like these relationships with these Spren. These Spren then go to honorable people, possibly, because they're
Well,
bound
if
to
you're an
honor,
honor Spren,
which
but what
would
if you're
give
a lot-
potentially over time that would give people with honor more power. But then when like people set down their swords, maybe the rules of that are broken, and now they become objects, and almost the Spren are just as enslaved as Pershindi or any other slave.
You have
They're like
some
enslaved without even
very
being
good
known
insight,
or
Brett.
something like
you're
that.
thinking very long term in this. Cool. All right, so Ben thinks
maybe
you're
in the
drops.
maybe in the life cycle maybe in the life cycle of the Spren, their butterfly state is a Shardblade, so to speak.
That seems like a
I don't know. I think
state. I'm gonna turn into this
right, right. I would maybe say that Shardblades are something else rather than the Spren themselves, because there's a whole boatload of different types of Spren, like drunkenness Spren and imprisonment Spren and glory Spren and decay Spren and
Logic
stuff.
Spren,
so I don't know that
Spren,
all of logic. I don't know
Death
that
Spren.
Those could form into a Shardblade, so to speak. But I mean, nobody.
I don't think they can either. I don't think all Spren can become Shardblades. I'm saying specific types of Spren.
Yeah, just specific types.
Possibly just these Sill type honor Spren.
Yeah, and clearly nobody in this world even knows about Spren that much, since all the Ardents are researching them. That one immortal dude, Access.
That immortal dude is still doing research on them.
Well, he just agreed.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh, yeah.
People.
Not even just people now.
Right,
I mean,
right.
in general, period. In history.
That's true.
Yeah, everyone's, people are doing research on him. Nobody knows about him. So, yeah, I would maybe just say no, but I could see it going either way.
All right.
I mean, also think about the fact that they call these people, like, oath packs. Like, who are they making this oath with? And why not a Spren?
Ooh,
and
that's a good point.
Oaths are binding as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take this episode and end it on this bet. And then we are going to start next episode, which will be probably shorter than an hour. And we're just
Probably shorter than an hour.
The end. That's what we're doing. So this episode's over. We talked through Kaladin's bridge run. So now we got Dalinar, we got Kaladin. So next episode, we're basically going to say Kaladin's finale, Dalinar's finale, Shallan's finale. And we're going to leave it at that, and that's book 1, you motherfuckers. And then we are going to be back in 2 weeks with a lot more memory, because we waited too long to do this podcast, clearly, on book 2, halfway through. So, Brett bets. We have a lot of Brett bets that are going to come to fruition in the next 2 weeks. That is a fact. All right. That's it.
Cheers.
Folks, cheers. Everybody else. And again, you've joined Lit Literature, and next episode will be the final for The Way of Kings, Book 1 of the Stormlight Archive. Cheers!
Bye. See you next week.
Bye.